So hi, thanks for coming, and thank you for staying for my talk. Let me tell you a story. About a month ago, I did one of the craziest things in my life. I took my wife and two cats and went on a plane and moved to New York City from Israel. So it was about a month ago, so I'm pretty new to the city. And I'm here to make new friends, and I like to meet people. So in the moment, I'll tell you a bit about myself. And if you'd like to go for a drink or invite me, or I can invite you, then let's meet. Cool. So my name is Ilya. For the past few years, I've been developing, consulting, and teaching everything that is related to frontend, specifically for React and Angular. And also, I organize a bunch of stuff, some international conferences, some local meetups in Israel. And now here I joined as co-organizer for this meetup, as Kirill said, and also opened a meetup for React called AngularNYC. So come say hi. Well, people already mentioned I wrote a book on Redux. And also I work at 500 Tech as the head of New York office. And 500 Tech is a company that helps other companies build advanced frontend with React and Angular. So if you have questions or want to organize a workshop, come talk to me. Also, one thing that I discovered here in the States, that everyone has to have a Twitter account with a lot of followers. And I'm yet to discover how to use it, because I usually see people tweeting 10 times a day, and I'm not used to it. But I have two ideas. The first idea is like that. Please raise your hand if you know any good restaurant or bar in Manhattan area.
We don't have enough time for that.
Yeah. So those of you who have time and raise your hand, this is my Twitter handle. Please go on and send me good places so I can check it out. And also, I want to make a selfie picture with the audience, but there's too many of you sitting too wide. So I have to pick a side. This side. No, let's do it this way. Raise your hand if you work with Angular 1. OK, now raise your hand if you work with Angular 2. Great. So this side gets my condolences and the picture. I'm sorry for you. You have to migrate to Angular 2 at some point. Let's see. Like kind of say hi or something. And I'm sorry for those of you who wouldn't get in the picture. Hi. Hi. Great. Thank you.
I know you can take multiple pictures, right?
I know, but I only have one tweet. So I only tweeted once. We can also see the Twitter handle for the meetup. Great. So now let me ask you a question. Who here considers himself a front-end developer? Raise your hand high so I can see. Now, keep your hand high if you worked, like for last year, you worked on single-page application. Great. Now, please keep your hand up if at some point you were delaying or at risk of delaying a UI feature because the backend wasn't ready yet. Wow, everyone. So I see that you and I have same problems in Israel and here in the US. So over the years, I had luck to work on dozens of projects for small companies like startups and large companies like enterprises and everything in between. And I've been noticing a pattern. And the pattern is that usually the front-end development goes much, much faster than the back-end development. And I'm not here to say that back-end people are lazy or they're incompetent. Yeah, you're with me. Yeah. I don't know why. It just happens. So usually we're ready with UI, and we're also waiting for the APIs to support the features that we are building. And are there any solutions? Do you know any solutions? JSON server is a great solution. What else?
Learn backend.
Yeah. Find them all and just write it yourself. And you can also write a proxy server and stuff like that. So for years, we tried a lot of solutions. We tried just a JSON server. We tried writing our own APIs. We tried creating node servers for stubs. Tried some SaaS, like software as a service solutions. And we weren't happy with any of those. And the reason we weren't happy, and actually a few reasons. First of all, many of these tools have learning curve. So in order to get to use JSON server, you have to read like this documentation this long. right? Just to understand how to use the tool. All of these tools also require some special configuration in your application. So for example, you have only one feature that is not supported on backend yet. You have to add special configuration just for those components. Like if you go to that endpoint, then instead of going to a real server, you should go to my stub server and take the responses from there. And then on production, you have switch it back to the production server. Also, when you change your stubs, you have to somehow synchronize it between your team, unless you're working alone, and I'm sorry for you. But usually you work with teams, and you have to synchronize all the stuff between you. And there are really a lot of problems we faced. And, but I'm not here to whine. I'm here to propose a solution. And my talk today is going to be about a tool that we've built to solve our problem. And as I understand, it will solve your problem as well. But first of all, let me start with the story. So about a year and a half ago, two guys from some company sent us an email for our meetup group asking about speaking. So they wrote us an email saying, hey, take a look at this tool. We've built it for mocking server responses on client side for Angular. We want to show it in your meetup. And they're like, yeah, it looks cool. Please come visit us and speak. And after 3 months, they were on stage showcasing their tool. And two of my colleagues, Mayan and Alex, they were sitting in audience. And they were, at the same time, they were getting both excited and upset. And the reason they was excited is because they were looking at this tool. And they were like, yes, this is what we are looking for. This is the tool that should solve our problems. And they were upset because this tool was only was really tightly coupled for Angular 1. And at the moment, we worked on a really large project for a client in React, so we couldn't use it. And what we did, the tool actually was called Leonardo. That was the picture of TMNT. That was kind of their logo. So what we did the day after the talk, we went to their GitHub repository, and we tried to see if we could contribute something back to make this tool framework agnostic, so we could also use it. But quickly we realized that it's not possible because it was really too tightly coupled to Angular 1. So we decided to go on our own and build our own tool. And we also, of course, we sent an email to those guys. And we were saying, like, we were really inspired by your talk. But we want to do something else, something of our own. If you are cool with that, we'll proceed. Because this is a small world. It's open source. So we decided to go on our own. And why I'm telling you this? I'm telling you this because it's important to understand that my talk now and these tools wouldn't happen without those two guys going and speaking up on stage and showcasing their product. So if you're working on a really good idea or you have any interesting concept to share, please send an email to meetup organizers. We always struggle to find good speakers. Send it to us. Share it with others. You never know who you inspire. Cool. Now, as we decided to move with our own tool, let me ask you, what is the first challenge when you start a new project? What's the most difficult thing? The setup. Boilerplate and stuff like that, frameworks? Nah, something more difficult. Names. Yeah, who said names? 5 points. So I struggle every day to find good names for my variables in code. Now imagine trying to find a good name for a tool that you're going to open source and you're going to promote to people, right? So we gathered our naming committee, and after some time, we decided to go with the name Shredder.js. Yeah, this is nice, because the first tool was called Leonardo. We called it Shredder. But very quickly, we realized that this name is not good, because first of all, who would call his open source project Shredder.js? And the second of all, we didn't want to imply any any competition with the other tool. So we wouldn't say that our tool is superior than ours. We just wanted to be something of our own. So then we gathered the naming committee again. And after a few days of discussions, we came up with the best name ever that you can think of for an open source project. His name was Badass Server Mocks. Yeah, we'll get back to the name a bit later. But do you know what is even harder than finding a good name for an open source package? There is one thing that is more difficult. Yeah, there's even something more difficult than that. What else? Good domain name. It's less of a problem, but it's close. An even bigger challenge than finding a good name for an open source project is finding it on NPM. So you thought for hours, and you decided to go with the name, and then you see that NPM has almost 500,000 packages, and then go find your name there. But luckily, this guy, recognize him? Who knows this guy? This is cool. This is Dan Abov. He wrote Redux and a bunch of other stuff. He worked at Facebook. And for some reason, he was the owner of BDSM package on NPM. This is a small world. Who knew? So at the time, I was writing a book on Redux, so I was in touch with him. So I contacted him saying that, hey, look, we are building this nice tool for client-side mocking. Can you please give us the name on NPM? And he was, yeah, sure, take it. His package was unmaintained and kind of abandoned anyway. And then we went to the second challenge, or the third challenge. It was the decision challenge. And what does it mean? It means that for days, we were sitting and discussing how we should organize the tool, how we should set up the API, how the tool should look like, right? And all these really important decisions. But if you just sit and discuss them over and over, you won't move any forward. So at some point, I decided to use my professional designer skills, right? And I made this version. Just take a moment to look at this piece of art. Now, as you can guess, this wasn't really a usable tool, but it was enough to start building a POC and gathering feedback from all the people from our company just to understand what are our needs and how we would like to use the tool and how we'd like to build it. So after a couple of weeks, my colleague decided that he would gather the feedback from all the people, and then he decided to use his professional designer skills. And then after some time, he came up with this. Take a look. This is even better. It gets better. Now, this isn't the perfect UI, but this is actually what we used for over a year already. And we were used to it. So we kind of, I don't know, it uses Material UI, kind of nice. People love Material UIs, right? Who loves Material UI? 2 people, 3 people. Yeah, a couple more. But anyway, so we were using this for over a year, but we had some problems promoting the package. And what are our problems? First of all, as you can guess, because of the name, the package was really easy to find on Google, right? But actually, the other guys had slightly better SEO than us, because we only had a new package on GitHub with 50 stars. And people, while looking for our tool, they were distracted by far more interesting stuff. And the other thing that we didn't think about, you throw in something about HRs. Some larger companies just couldn't use the tool because of its name. So they contacted us and they said, like, if you would just change the logo and the name, then we could probably use it. And we even thought about ourselves that we should charge like $10,000 for it. So just change the name. But yeah, we have a really complicated sense of humor. And the second thing was the UI. So let me tell you something. You never trust engineers to build a UI for your tool. Never trust engineers to build a UI for your tool. It won't do you any good. So the problem was that we built the tool, so we are used to it. We know how to use it. But it's really hard to explain to other people how to use it because it's unobvious, to be short. And also, we found a really, really important secret in the open source. And those who did open source for some time, you probably know that. But those of you who are new, remember that actually no one cares about your tool unless it becomes popular. But the fun fact is, once it becomes popular, you actually want less attention, because you get blown away by issues and by questions in email and stuff like that. So how would people have really hard feelings about the tools they use. So if you used JSON Server for years, how can I convince you to try a new tool? You're already used to it, right? So it was really upsetting and disappointing. But we didn't give up, and you should never give up. And now let me tell you another story. You like stories? Cool. Who likes technical talks? It's for. So a few years back, even before actually many years back, even before I thought to become a programmer, I discovered a talented designer on the internet. And his name was the same name as mine, the name that no local people can really pronounce. The name is Ilya, if you're wondering. And we never met in person, but I subscribed to his blog, and I followed his works. And at some point, he came to Israel, and he organized a small meetup where he could answer design questions live. Like, people come, and they show him his design, and like he does a live Q&A session. And I thought, well, this is a really nice opportunity to meet a new person, right? So I went to this meetup, and after it, I came to him, and I said, hey, you do nice things, I do nice things. Let's meet over drink and get to know each other. And he agreed, and after a few months, we decided that he could build the second version of the tool for us. And the tool was called Mimic, for the new version. And we like it much better than DSM. Thank you, thank you. It was really a hard decision. Now, why this story is important? Because my talk and the second version of the tool wouldn't happen if I wouldn't come to this guy and try to meet him and try to get to know him. So you can never know where will your new connections lead you. So go out, meet new people, and also if you want to make things done, you have to reach out to other people, because if you're working alone, you can only do this much, but with the help of others, you can do whatever you can, like releasing a new version of the tool no one uses. So the new tool looks like that. Whoa. So what we try to do, we try to make it look and feel like a tool that is built into browser. So how we would like to mocking tool for server responses to look if it was built by Chromium team. Yeah, thank you. So this looks like that. And this is the web version. But I'm here to talk about Mimic in NativeScript, right? So here you can see, by the way, who here uses NativeScript? Raise your hand high, please. And do you use it in production or just playing with it?
Just started playing with it.
Just started playing with it. OK, so NativeScript, if you don't know, is it's a framework that allows you to write JavaScript and translate this JavaScript into hybrid applications for mobile. And by hybrid, I mean that you write JavaScript, but it translates to native UI elements and native controls. And the thing is that there's no tool to actually work with server responses or mocking server responses on mobile. So we also made Mimic work with React Native and NativeScript as well. And let me show you how would you use it in NativeScript. So for example, you have a feature. You have a Pentagon app, right? And here's the login box. Let me try to input my name and my password. It's the same password I use everywhere, right? 1 to 6. Now let me try to log in. Now, as you can see, the feature is not implemented on server. Yay! The server team says it will be like in a month or so. But now I can open this request log. Here, you can see it. Whoop, or you can't. You can see that I just made an API call for login. It was a post API call with all my params. And you see that it returns 200. It's a bug. So forget about it. And now I can mock it. And I can see in request body, I use this username and password. But in response body, instead of could not connect to server, I could write a custom message. So I could say message, oh noes, right? And I just click the login again. And now you can see that in a couple of clicks, I just mocked the server response, and I used a new error message. But it gets even better. For example, what can I do here is inside the request body, instead of this specific username and password, let me just, can I somehow make it bigger? Do you see it well? Yes. Cool. So instead of that, I can write asterisk in both places. And now I can write any name here and any password. And Mimic will automatically catch and replace all the wildcards with the parameters you send. And now let's actually send a good response. Let's say it would be access token. Oh, that's request body. Let's do it here then. We'll have better luck. Right? And now when I click login, I can see, ta-da, I'm inside Pentagon now. Now I want to check how this tool will look like if my server is working, but it's really slow. So I want to somehow to imitate a slow server response. So I would do, for example, 2 seconds, and then I click login. And now you see the loading screen, or imagine a nice loading animation. So my presentation is really short. I don't have time to explain all the features we have in Mimic. It actually supports web workers. It supports Fetch API and has rich API by itself, so you can use it for integration tests and stuff like that. It's an enormous amount of work we've done. And now I just want to briefly go around some challenges, some technical challenges that we faced while building the application. So for example, this guy. Do you know him? This is something that haunts you at night in your worst nightmares. So if you don't know, CSS bleeding is something that is a styling that you write for one component, and it somehow interferes with another component completely unrelated to the first one. In our case, this is a really important problem because, as you can see, our tool is really UI rich and UI heavy, right? And we couldn't let the hosting application. By the way, to install this tool in your app, it's just npm install Mimic and import Mimic. That's it. No installations, no like. Well, I cheat for NativeScript and React Native. You should have some another package running in background. But if you run web application, this is just importing the library, and that's it. So CSS bleeding, we couldn't let any styling from the host app affect our application. And let's see what solutions we can check. So first of all, iframes, right? Iframes can eliminate any CSS bleeding by creating a document. Yeah, you don't agree with me, but hold on. By creating a document inside the document and just putting styles there. But this solution really didn't work for us well because iframes only support post messages, and we couldn't pass any unserializable objects to it. And Mimic has rich API that has to work within the hosting application. So API was really hard to implement and maintain. And fun fact that the first version of Mimic actually ran inside iframe. So I speak from experience. You can ask me about any problem you have with iframes. I can speak about it all day long. But let's move on. The second thing that is CSS all property. Who's familiar with that? OK, a few people. So this is something new in CSS, which allows you to reset all the styles for an element with one line. But the problem is that some people still use IE and Edge. And although I'm sorry for you, but we still love you, and we have to support you. So this wasn't an option as well. And the third thing is CSS reset. A CSS reset, the problem with that is if we'd like to make it proper, we would put a CSS style inside the hosting application. And first of all, we don't want to do that. But the second problem with that is that if you use important styles in your style sheets, it will override our resets. And the only way to make CSS resets work is to write them inline on every element. And write them inline and also apply important on that inline styles. Because as you know, important in style sheets overrides inline styles for elements. So it's impossible to think of a solution, but we found one. We used something called custom elements. And by that, I mean using something called Mimic div and Mimic span. This helped us just create new elements on the page and apply styling for them. Now, we had some problems with that, like creating custom input elements and drag and drop and stuff like that. But I don't have time to explain all of this. So we'll just move on. The second problem was the code editor. Who here used a code editor inside his application at least once? OK, a bunch of people. So the problem with those elements, we have a rich editor for response body and the response and the request headers and the request params. And the problem with those libraries is that they are really heavy in terms of adding style sheets and event listeners and custom scripts to the page. And we could not mess up with the host application because you would just abandon the tool, right? So the only solution for us was to use this code editor inside an iframe. And as I told you, the fun fact from the first version, our tool ran inside an iframe, and we had to put this editor inside an iframe, and then it's like iframeception. So we had this communication layer between all the iframes. It was like the code was mess and hell, but sometimes you have to write ugly code just to make things work. You know that. And the other problem was the fetch API, and the problem with that was that many platforms, including NativeScript, aren't supporting fetch API as per spec, so they don't implement many things that should be there. And we ended up just helping other projects to implement fetch spec just to make support for them. So we also contributed to many other projects except for ours. Now let me talk about some UI challenges. And this is a very subjective thing. By subjective, I mean that some of you might look at these challenges and say, well, you guys are crazy. No one cares about what you're trying to do, and no user will ever see it. But I think when you're doing a proper UI as per designed, you're doing a proper UI as the designer meant it, you have to put attention to every detail. It's really important. So for example, we had this font rendering issue. Like Safari didn't render sub-pixel alias fonts in some places. So who would notice? But we did. Also, we had a lot of controls. And some controls, when you click and move your mouse just a little bit, you get your text selected. So we had to implement user select none of many of things. No, one pixel jumps. Imagine you have some tabs. And the selected tab has slightly wider text, like by 1 or 2 pixels offset. And when you switch between tabs, this tab's kind of jumping for 1 or 2 pixels. And this is really irritates my eyes, so I can't look at that. Also, resizing is a problem. Like, how do you resize not too much or not too little? Or our friend off-canvas rendering, when you implement context menus, stuff like that. Now, we managed to tackle all of these issues. If you'd like to see how we did it, come to me after my talk. Or just take a look at the code. It's open source. And you can see all the code we are ashamed of. And now I'd like to finish with some future challenges that we might face, or I think we will face, with our project. And first of all, we developers are really good at writing code and getting things done. But when it comes to describing to other people how to use the project, we just, I don't know, clone it and look at the tests. So documentation and tutorials and guides is a really big challenge for many people out there. So if you have free time and you want to contribute to other open source projects, but you're afraid to break the code, you can help with the documentation. I can speak from my experience. It helps so much. These small contributions, even like changing a paragraph or fixing a typo. Also, the community indifference. The problem with people, as I told you, they have really hard feelings about their tools. And the other thing is that when they face a problem in some third-party library they use, instead of going to GitHub and filing an issue, they just delete the tool and never use it again. But the problem is the only way we could make a tool that will be useful for all of you is for all of you to send bug reports to us so you know how to improve it, right? And this is something that I don't know how to change people. I could just ask politely, please try to use the tool and send us your feedbacks so we know what to improve. Also, binary formats, stuff like that, supporting other platforms, and also improving support for existing platforms like React Native and NativeScript is a big challenge. So if you want to help out, reach out to me. And the most important thing is staying sane with all of it. Because once the tool gets popular, and I hope it will become popular because all of you are going to get stars, right? To give me stars. Then you get overwhelmed by pull requests and by feature requests and by questions on email. And it's really important to keep this work-life balance between how much time you spend on something that you really like to work on, like, for example, this tool, and your rest. So you have to sleep well, and you have to put your life before any work. It's selfish, but you have to do it. Otherwise, you'll be burned out. And by that, I want to invite you to the website of Mimic. So take a picture, And if you like it, please warm my heart by giving us a star. And thank you. That's it.